chef thinks it right.
So
well, let's tie up from the last episode, okay? I made a prediction. What?
Right. Go ahead.
Made a prediction. Eagles won the Super Bowl. Congrats, Philly.
I'm still living in the moment.
Yes.
Living in the moment, and I tried this week not to think of anything else, but
yeah, it was pretty difficult, but
and the parade was amazing. I
yeah,
went.
It's awesome.
So, like we mentioned in the last episode, we were going to talk about
19 crimes. Yes, 19. Actually, we're drinking some 19 Crimes wine now. What kind do you have?
So I have 2016 red wine. And
this is the Cabernet Sauvignon. Now, we're not actually going to speak about the wine so much, but what the 19 crimes were.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll give them a little, what it tastes like a little bit, like a little background, like what I taste at least and what you taste. And
should I put my pinky finger out when I do it?
I really think this wine is one of my favorites. It's become one of my favorites. And I love their app.
Yeah,
we'll have to show it to you guys. It's so cool.
We've been, we've had this wine for
a couple
at least a year now. You just picking up, when we're at the liquor store or whatever, and it was one of the ones that we fell in love with, and we really enjoy. And we reached out and they sent us a couple bottles to.
So thank you.
Thank you, and they have a really cool thing going on.
So this is the thing. I know a lot of people, like, when they get products and stuff like that, and you expect them to, like, I guess make it seem like it's better than others or something like that. There's a lot of good wines out there. This is one of our favorites. And not just the wine itself, but like I said, I think the label and the background of it makes it really interesting and cool.
Yeah, well, and the really unique thing about this is the label, like Roberta said, there's now an app for it. So when you hold the app over the label, and it's got usually one of these guys, these criminals on the front, and you hold the app over, and he comes to life. And we'll show a clip of that right now.
Some may call me traitor, others hero, but I call myself Michael Harrington, Fenian brother, and part of the Fremantle Six.
So you kind of get an idea of what they do. All the labels do something different. I
just think that's really cool that they came up with that idea.
It is really cool. I like the warden. I'm not going to spoil it because you got to go get the warden. Yeah. But it's
some
really cool.
Some liquor stores don't have all of them. They have, but they change it up sometimes. Like they get different ones. So keep an eye out when you go to the liquor store. It's really cool.
Yeah, and you can follow them on Instagram and Twitter. Instagram, they're 19 Crimes Wine, and Twitter and Facebook, they're 19 Crimes.
Yeah, check them out.
Yeah. So.
All right. So now I think we should break this down.
Right. So what were the 19 crimes? What is this all about? So basically, it's about British colonists who were committing crimes, one of the 19, or more.
Right.
And basically, instead of being sentenced to death, they were being exiled from Britain and sent to Australia.
Right. But that's, I think, how a lot of them planned their escape because they were on those boats and stuff like that.
Well, a lot of them died at sea, too. Not many of them made it. And the ones that did, I guess, are on these bottles. But
Right.
It's really cool.
Why don't you give us some of the crimes?
Well, it basically breaks down into everything. The funny thing is, when we get to the end, there's one that I don't really see mentioned on here that you would think would be mentioned. There's theft. Obviously, theft of money, theft of stolen goods, receiving or buying stolen goods, robbery of a home, and of course, I'm just compiling all these together. I'm not going one by one.
Right. I think the one that stood out to me, which I thought was really funny, was just stealing fish.
Yeah, but not stealing fish from people. Stealing
I guess
fish from a pond or a river. So did they have to have a license to fish?
I'm assuming so, right?
I mean, yeah, I guess it's kind of like, here in
they had to
Pennsylvania.
eat. They had to eat. So, to feed your family, if you had no money, you I guess that's what they did.
Right.
They went to a pond or wherever and stole fish.
I find it funny that stealing precious metals is separate from stealing coin. You know, you would think that they're one in the same, but they're not. And jewelry was actually a separate thing too. One of the funny things that I found was impersonating an Egyptian.
Yeah, that's weird.
But it's not what you would think.
From Britain, though?
Yeah, it's not what you would think. So they're not actually impersonating an Egyptian.
Okay.
It's basically referring to being a gypsy.
Well, I mean, like, you see some gypsy. I don't know if they do it a lot here. I know when we lived in Northeast, there was a couple people that were like, "Oh, I can read your palm," and they would dress up like gypsies.
Yeah. Well, and there were legitimate gypsies. I mean, there still are kind of today.
Right, but their thing was always, that's how some of them would actually steal money from you while they were like reading your cards or, you know, trying to tell your future or whatever.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Assault was obviously on there, but it was not simple assault. It wasn't something like, you know, if we ran out and beat somebody up.
Right.
It was only if it was in assault with an intent to rob or an intent to maim.
Okay.
Which I guess kind of falls into that category, but if you basically got jumped on the street or you were in a bar fight, it didn't matter.
Okay.
That didn't qualify.
Yeah.
Stealing mail, which is a capital offense today.
Anyway, I think this is really cool because I wanted to share with you guys. I know a lot of them with these bottles, they will tell you a little bit of their story, like probably like what, like a 10-second clip, 15-second clip that they tell you.
Well, yeah, kind of like the one you just saw.
But I really wanted to bring up the one, John Boyle O'Reilly.
Okay.
Which I thought his was really cool. He was sentenced to death, and then they were transporting him to Australia, and then when he was in Australia, he escaped from prison after 2 years of being there, and he came to America, to Boston.
Well, an escape from prison is one of the 19 crimes.
Okay, yeah. So he came to America to live in Boston. He became a famous writer and poet. He fell in love.
Oh,
yeah.
He's that
Yeah.
O'Reilly.
Yes.
Okay.
So then he fell in love with this one girl, Jessie or whatever, and she ended up breaking his heart, and he ended up finding out that she was pregnant with his child, and then he wanted to commit suicide, so he started to like cut his wrist.
Wait, why did he want to commit suicide?
Because she broke his heart. She didn't want to be with him. No, she didn't want to be with him anymore.
Nice.
So, and then he found out that she was probably pregnant, and the child evidently died, and he just wanted to commit suicide, so he slit his wrists, and they ended up saving him because he did that, but then he did overdose after that. So he actually did commit suicide because of it.
Back in a day where overdosing was just kind of like, I mean, think about it, back then everything was not the way it is today.
Right.
They didn't know medically what it would do.
Well, yeah, I mean, from one of the shows that we used to watch, the Mysteries at the Museum.
Mysteries at the Museum.
I mean, we used to hear a lot of stories about, like, you know, how strong the drugs were, though.
Yeah.
Like, those were strong drugs that people were taking if they took any, you know?
That's true.
So I'm not surprised there that, you know.
You should get Don Wildman on an episode just to come in.
Oh, my God, how cool would that be?
That would be cool. Yeah.
But anyway, and then between 1760 and 1820, there were crimes that got, you know, transported, like we said, from Australia, or what was it, from Britain?
From Great Britain to Australia.
Yeah. So that was a lot of the crimes that were committed between those.
It's funny because when we, you know, last week when we announced that we were doing this episode, you know, we assumed that it was American mobsters, but, you know, Australia has some amazing ones.
If you actually look at American like crime, like mobs and stuff, it's Italian mobs really that are in that, you know.
Yeah.
But a lot of, if you do some back history, it's really kind of started to defend certain things, and it got out of.
Well, it's organized. You know, a mob is organized crime.
Right.
This wasn't organized crime, and that's what we thought this episode was going to be about before we did research, because, you know,
right.
a little slow sometimes, but we'll have to do an episode on organized crime. But this is actually, I mean, this is something totally unexpected to us, so it was really cool looking into some of this stuff. I mean, you know, typical stuff like counterfeiting and arson. There's a whole bunch of things. Bigamy which is being married. It's not polygamy, so it's not multiple wives. It's just 2 wives.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were married to more than one woman, or you got married in secrecy, that was considered one of these 19 capital offenses.
Really?
But all of these things, murder is not on there. Homicide is not on the list.
Wow.
Now, I guess with homicide,
it was a different.
You would pile other things in there.
Right.
But I guess they're not exempt from the death penalty because remember they were sending these people out.
Right. So, they didn't want them in their country.
Right.
So
right. So I guess with murderers that wasn't one of the 19 crimes. That was one of the ones that actually did get the penalty.
Yeah.
Yeah, the death penalty.
I find that stuff fascinating. Like, to me, to just learn history about certain things and people, I'm fascinated by that, you know. Yeah. Just the way things were back then too, the way things were judged, and you know, like you said, like they were shipped out, you know, like you commit a crime, you're getting shipped out of here, like you're going somewhere else,
right?
You know, so
I just think, and they were British citizens that were getting shipped out. So I mean, but to them that was probably a relief. You know, they're not getting a death penalty. Yeah, right. They're sent on a really nasty voyage across the sea where they might die.
Yeah, it's true.
Especially in those days. It's not like they're jumping on a
Carnival
cruise.
The one that I was reading about, it was a little boat. Like, it was a tiny boat that he went to transported to Australia.
That's one thing I didn't look at. Were they all on tiny boats? I think
no. Some of them were bigger boats, but the one was in a tiny little boat.
Yeah, but it wasn't bigger boats like. It was kind of like cargo.
There was one that was a whaler.
Yeah.
So it was big, but this other one was like a tiny one.
So what happens if you're getting sent out for stealing fish from a pond, and you get put on a whaling boat? I mean, how ironic is that?
Is there fish on the whaling boat?
On the boat?
Yeah.
Well, they have to eat.
Is that like the ones where they used to kill the whales?
Kill the whales.
And there's whale meat?
Yeah.
So did they steal the whale meat?
Blubber? I mean, how else you got to eat while you're going over there, you know?
No, what I mean, like when you get off the boat, like do you have like whale skin to
whale
sell?
Skin?
Isn't whale skin worth a lot of money?
Whale blubber, didn't they used to make candles out of that? They did. They made candles out of it.
Right. I don't know. But anyway, so, yeah.
I do turn my head to the right.
You do.
You know what it is? It's the equilibrium from the bun on top of your head and your big giant hoop earrings.
These are not giant.
No, they're not. Mm-mm. They're not. That's very Latin of you. So I could say that because you are Latin. But, you know, whatever.
What does this have to do with anything?
Nothing. Okay. Nothing at all. But
anyway,
somehow.
Now we're just rambling. We just wanted to share that with you guys, and I think this episode is pretty quick and to the point.
She's telling me to shut up. You see what's happening here?
People don't want to hear you rambling.
Nobody wants to hear me.
No, but this is straight to the point, and I think this is pretty cool.
Yeah, and thank you again to 19 Crimes, and I highly recommend checking out their labels. Even if, I don't want to say go into a liquor store. I actually
highly recommend trying their wine.
Well, their wine's amazing.
Yeah.
But, even if you're in the store.
Look, I sound like a salesperson, but it is affordable, like for a wine, like a good wine.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Oh, anyway.
Cheers.
Cheers. Taking the whole bottle.